It's all terrible news this morning, so we're trying to keep everybody's spirits up by coming up with some stupid names for Keir Starmer's boy band. But aside from that, what's going on with the Royal College of Nursing? It looks like they're not happy with an offer of something like 3.94% pay rise, and they're going to go out on strike.
Yeah, it was a 3.6% pay rise. And I think it was inevitable, really, Mike, because once the government caved in and gave the doctors 22%, all the other professions within the NHS and the wider public sector were always going to come back and ask for more. You know, when we were in government, we made the difficult decisions to keep with the independent pay review body recommendations. We're often criticised for that, but it was a level playing field. If you, as a profession, you got a recommendation, that's what we paid. You know, Labour were warned by giving, it was a £2 billion deal, the 22% pay rise for the then junior doctors, the resident doctors now, that this would happen. They come back for more, and so would other professions. The RCN announced the result of their ballot yesterday. 91% of those that voted to say they were unhappy with the pay deal. That was always going to be the case.
Right. And I mean, the unfortunate thing is, I suppose, is that with ever increasing pressure on the NHS, more and more people are going to miss out and not have their appointments and not have their procedures done, aren't they, if this happens?
Yeah, I mean, we were very lucky in my trust. You know, we have to remember not all resident doctors are members of the BMA. Of those that are, not all of them voted to strike, and not all of them that did vote to strike did go on strike. So, you know, we were able to maintain a very good service, but you have to plan as if people will be off, and that does reduce your productivity and your ability to see patients. So it is a difficult time, and you know, patients have had a rough time of it. You know, the NHS overall has been struggling to recover from COVID, and this just adds to the pressures. And you know, what I don't see is Labour have got themselves into this mess now, that they promised that the 22% would solve strikes forever. And actually, it's just opened another can of worms.
And last time you and I spoke, you said to me that you'd gone out of, obviously, the nursing profession into into politics to be an MP. Now you've gone back in, and you've said that you found that there's a lot more people now doing jobs that don't appear to be particularly necessary for nursing. So, I mean, if you're going to be asking for a pay rise, would it not be sensible for the Royal College of Nursing to say, all right, if we go to Wes Streeting and he hasn't got any money, can we ask him to sort of have a look at how it's all structured?
No, and they exactly did that. And when we did a deal with them before the general election, the nurses and most NHS workers are on what's called the Agenda for Change pay scale, which is very unfair to nurses. Nurses who can be senior nurses, you know, prescribing, ordering investigations, are often on, you know, very senior nurses, are often on the same pay as a communications person or your favourite, the Equality Diversity Officer, you know, and this pay structure is not fair to nurses, and we promised to reform that. Labour scrapped that promise, and I think that's also not helped nurses feel valued, because it is fun. The Agenda for Change structure has been wrong for nurses for a very long time, and that is something that would make a difference. It's not the only solution, but it would make a difference. Okay. But also because of the way the funding is in the NHS now, while resident doctors have got a pay rise, and you know they work hard and you know do a great job, we're seeing that because the funding is now stretched, that newly qualified doctors, GPs, nurses, midwives, who are just finishing their training now, cannot get jobs because there's jobs freezes across certain trusts. And so, you know, when professions are asking for extra money, that the pot only stretches so far. And while existing professions will get pay rises, we have to remember that those coming behind are leaving because they spent years training and then can't get a job.
But isn't there part of the problem as well that so many nursing jobs have now been sort of siphoned off by agency nurses, and so an awful lot of nurses that I've spoken to in the past have actually said we've left the NHS and we now work for agencies because we make more money that way?
I'd say, to be fair, Mike, that has been cracked down a lot in the last few years. It's very rare now that I see an agency nurse on a shift. You'll see nurses within the hospital who do extra bank shifts, but they are not paid like agency nurses. There's no fee. It's an internal kind of agency that each hospital runs themselves. So that has been cracked down on a huge amount. I think less so in other professions like medicine. There's not really the same bank system, but certainly for nurses, the old agency nurses, where people did make a lot of money, as did the agencies, that has been cracked down on quite substantially now.
Okay. So what's the time frame on all this then? When would the nurses likely be going out on strike if things are not improving?
Well, we've been told there'll be a ballot probably, in a few months' time, probably towards the autumn, on strike action, and to see if that's something that nurses want to do. I don't know what the appetite is like, but I think people are generally cheesed off. And I think if the 22% hadn't been given to resident doctors, I think that would have not kind of riled up the other professions as well.
So, yeah, that was a mistake, clearly. Not the greatest start to being the Secretary of State for Health by West Streeting, but there we are. Maria, thank you very much indeed. Maria Caufield, nurse and former Conservative MP, of course, saying that, the nurses feel as though, quite frankly, they've been mistreated